Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations space for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Hürtgen Jim, and today we're back to finish up our war game commemorating the 80th anniversary of the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest. The system we're using is Battlegroup by Plastic Soldier Company and IronFist Publishing. Now, I think I'm on record for about the last 10 years or so when I say that Battlegroup is my favorite World War II miniatures game. Relax, everybody. I said miniatures game. On a more serious note, the Hürtgen Forest is one of the darkest chapters for the American Army in World War II. Very briefly speaking, the Hürtgen Forest lies on the border between Belgium and Germany, and this is where the 1st U.S. Army had cracked the Siegfried Line and was now trying to push into Germany proper. The German army, naturally, took exception to this idea. They were also really trying to hold on to this area because it sits directly on the northern flank of where they were going to launch their upcoming Ardennes offensive, commonly known as the Battle of the Bulge. This was going to start in mid-December, and the Germans did not want several U.S. divisions in position to threaten the wing of this effort. After initially making slow, bitter, and very bloody progress, the 28th U.S. Infantry Division took one hell of a bloody nose from a well-timed German counterattack mounted primarily around Kampfgruppe Bayer. This was made up of elements of the German 116th Panzer and 89th Infantry Divisions, and this is the battle that we've been recreating on our tabletop. So, I'm playing the Germans of Kampfgruppe Bayer, with Mark Ritchie playing the Americans of 112th Infantry Regiment, 28th U.S. Infantry Division. So far, I'm doing pretty good. I've smoked both of Mark's M10 gun motor carriages of his 893rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, and I've even smoked one of his Sherman platoon leaders of the attached 707th Tank Battalion. But Mark has also wrecked my 88mm, and he's doing a great job at pinning down not only my infantry of Grenadier Regiment 1055, but also my Jagdpanzer IV tank destroyers. I'm not making very good progress at all back up that logging trail towards the American-held bridge over the Kall River. Another thing that's really going well for Mark are his battle rating counters. Every time something bad happens to your force, you have to draw one of these battle rating counters. Usually these are numbered from 1 through 5, and when your total points reaches your battle group's breakpoint value, you lose the game. But so far, Mark has drawn all special counters. Yes, every single one of them. Now, these counters don't come with any of those numbers, but instead some sort of negative effect on the enemy side. Most ominously of all, Mark has drawn an air attack counter, which means he can now start rolling to bring his P-38 on the table. Even worse, his list includes a forward air controller, making that roll that much easier. But, like I warned you in part 1, my Germans might have a bit of a comeback in store. My tanks and tank destroyers are finally getting into position, and so are my grenadiers. Well equipped with panzerfausts, I might add, and there are plenty of thin-skinned US half-tracks about. So how about we head back over to the footage and we see how this knife fight in the blood-soaked Hürtgen Forest finishes up. Finishing up the German turn, here is my forward artillery observer. He's going to call in a fire mission on this spot on the map right here. I miss wildly, but when we measure direction and distance, check it out. I happen to land the rounds right next to another American infantry squad. I score a pin with a 4, however Mark saves with a 6, so much ado about nothing. And now that artillery piece is out of ammunition, I'm going to go ahead and limber him up and get him off the board, because if he stays on the table, he might get destroyed and force me to draw another battle rating counter. Alright, that ends the German turn. I'm now going to draw a battle rating counter so I can rally some units. That's my number. But, of course, I roll a 1, so I can only rally 1 unit. I'll go ahead and rally that Jagdpanzer, which means I'll have to leave that half-track pinned down for now. Starting off the American turn, we're going to begin with Mark's senior leader here, calling in an artillery mission with the 75mm on his onboard T-19 self-propelled howitzer. Now, hopefully you can barely see the German tank that's visible there at the top of your screen. That was the aiming point. It dropped by 4 inches, so it lands there at the base of the hill. It's one gun with a double fire order, so it gets 2 dice. The 1 is no effect. The 6, however, is a killing attack against enemy armor. So this doesn't happen too often. I actually have to look up this rule. it looks like we're going to go ahead and put the shell's armor-piercing value against the vehicle's side armor. Alright, so he rolled an 8, but he needed a 9 because the armor penetration is a 2 against the Panzer IV's side armor of 11. So he didn't penetrate the armor, but he may have pinned down the crew. So we're going to roll a d6 on this column here. I'll use one of Mark's dice to save a little bit of time. Oh, I roll a 1. Okay, so notice it says abandoned, but notice that footnote of 1. That 1 means that it's abandoned only if it's already pinned or immobilized. For now, it's just pinned. Moving on to this American infantry squad here, we have a bit of a good news, bad news situation. This bazooka gunner that's facing the wrong way decides to engage these 2 German tanks here on top of the ridge. Now, they have fired from an open position, so observation is automatic. He shot twice, he hit twice, but failed to get through the armor. Now, real quick guys, before anyone starts yelling at me, yes, on our tables we do allow extended range out to 20 inches for bazookas, panzerfaust, panzerschrecks, things like that, although at a reduced chance to hit and of course armor penetration. The bad news, at least for my Germans, is that the rest of these Americans, including that 2-man Browning 30 caliber machine gun team, engaged the rest of my grenadiers in that tree line and basically wiped them out. Next, Mark activates this half-track with its pencil-mounted 50 caliber machine gun, observes my German grenadiers there, takes a double fire order, and manages to score a total of 4 hits. I managed to save for 3. My medic failed to save that 1 remaining casualty, so now I have to roll to see whether or not I'm pinned. Hopefully I'm not rolling a 1 or a 2, because that would be bad. Alright, I rolled a 5. That squad is okay for now. However, that squad is then pinned down by the rest of the American infantry with that half-track. Now I'm taking fire from another half-track against the squad that's already pinned. I take another casualty, and this time my morale, I roll a 2. And because I was already pinned down, that 2 result is read as a rout/surrender. That will be the end of that squad. Okay, at the end of the American turn, Mark draws a battle rating counter so he can roll to rally some units. He rolls great, rallies all his units, and he also draws a confusion counter. Of course he does, which he plays on my Mark IV here. So basically, I have to roll morale as if that Mark IV had been struck by enemy fire. I roll a 2, which is more bad luck for me. And we look here on the vehicle column on the unit morale table, and yeah, that's going to be pinned down on that German Mark IV. Great. Alright, so we're beginning German turn 3. Again, it's 3d6 for a company-sized game, plus my number of officers, which is still 4. Okay, so I don't have that many orders. I gotta be careful here. But I'm going to start off with a tactical coordination order to immediately unpin that Mark IV that he just pinned down. So I take another battle rating counter, I make the troop quality test, thank goodness, and now both of those Mark IVs are going to take a double fire order. So there's a lot of dice to go through here. Let's go through it step by step. First of all, that Sherman is automatically observed. I roll a 6. That's gonna be a hit. Now it's time to penetrate the armor. My gun is a 7. His armor is a 12. That means to penetrate his armor, I have to beat a 5 on 2d6. And that's an 8. That easily gets the job done. Okay, so the Sherman is flamed. Now Panzer number 1 is going to try to hit that half-track that has been firing at me from the crossroads. He is obscured, so I do have to roll for this. I just have to beat a 2+, to be honest. But, okay, I do observe him with a 4. Now, to hit at less than 20 inches is a 3+ with an armor-piercing shell. 4+ because he does enjoy some obscuring terrain cover. 6 is a hit. And the penetration against the side of a half-track is kind of a joke. He's smoked. Okay, Panzer I is done. He has destroyed that Sherman on the hill and that half-track at the crossroads. Panzer II will now also take a double fire order, starting with that half-track that's been shooting at me from underneath that tree. 2+ to observe, I roll a 3, and now the range is actually less than 20, so my chance goes down to a 3+, make it a 4+ because of some cover. A 5 scores an easy hit, and again, it's the front armor, but it's the front armor of a half-track, so it's actually kind of a joke. It's a 9 minus an 8 at this range. I have to beat a 1 on 2d6, basically. Yeah, that's the end of him. Alright, my second Panzer IV still has 1 shot left on his double fire order, but I've run out of armored targets. So instead I'm going to fire my bow machine gun and my HE shell. I'm going to drop it into that American infantry squad I've been trying to knock down since the beginning of the game. First I have to roll to observe. He actually hasn't fired out of that obscured position. He's been pinned down the whole game. I need a 4 up. I barely get it with a 4. So awesome, I'm now cleared to engage. Alright, so after I fire my tank cannon and my machine gun, I do wind up killing 3 out of his 4 figures. Last man standing rule, that's the end of that squad. And finally, that is the end of my 2 double fire orders out of my 2 Mark IVs there. They did some damn good work, and Mark finally draws a battle rating counter that isn't a special counter. Okay, back to my German artillery spotters here. They are considered to be inside this building on the 2nd floor, and using that as an observation point, I hope you guys can see where I'm calling in my artillery mission way there in the background. Alright, so first I'm going to call in my priority check. I make that. Roll for divisional guns. I fail that. Comms reroll gives me a 6. I succeed on the 6. So I succeeded on divisional guns. Rolling on the divisional guns table, I then get a 4. So let's look and see what I get. Looks like I'm getting 2 105s once again. Alright, so first I start off with my spotting round. That's going to indicate I missed by 2d6 inches. Then I roll my 2d6. Looks like I missed by 7 inches at 4 o'clock. Okay, so that's going to be the final aiming point. That's not too bad because I'm still within 10 inches of the intended American infantry squad, but I do gotta be careful here because that drift did get me close to one of my own empty half-tracks, and I will be throwing 4 dice of artillery damage. So, long story short, take your first shot. I might wind up dropping some heat on one of my own units. Alright, so I rolled my 4 dice. Again, 2 dice for my 2 guns. It's a double fire order for those 2 units. And that's going to be a killing attack against the American squad. You go against the closest unit first. Then a pinning attack again against the American squad. And a pinning attack on my half-track. German 10.5 centimeter howitzer rounds against the American infantry squad. The killing attack is going to be 5 dice at 3+. I score 4 kills. However, Mark is going to get saves against this because his troops are in soft cover. The pinning attacks are going to be 3 up against the American infantry squad and also 3 up against the half-track. So here are the results. We knocked down some of the American infantry and pinned down the rest. Luckily, we did not pin down my own half-track, and now it's time to start looking at taking that objective, there at the trailhead. So that half-track that you can probably barely see behind all those trees, he's going to nose out from under cover and go for that objective. Meanwhile, that half-track is going to take a double fire order against the remains of that American infantry. Alright, so first I have to observe. It is obscured infantry that has fired from that position. Alright, cool, I easily make that roll. And now it's machine gun fire. It is a chance of 4, make that a 5 because they're obscured. 5 dice for a pencil-mounted machine gun, double fire order, so I roll it twice. I only get 2. And then Mark winds up making one of his saves. So I only remove 1 figure out of that infantry squad. Then we roll to see about additional pinning effects, and there are none. And I will show you where the iron crosses grow.
And I will show you where the iron crosses grow.
Okay, my Grenadier Command Squad is going to move forward 5 inches, and that puts them within 5 inches of the pinned down American Infantry Squad. Time for a close assault. Alright, so here are the quick rules for infantry close assault versus infantry. I get an additional D6 because of grenades, and I get a few extra D6 because some of my guys are carrying submachine guns. So I've added up all of my additional dice. Not all my guys are carrying submachine guns. And now we're going to go ahead and try to roll. At this point blank range, no cover, I only need a 2+. So out of my 8 dice, I score 7 hits. Mark only makes 1 save, and that's going to be the end of that American infantry squad. Now the Americans don't get to shoot back because they were pinned down. It's the only time it really pays to do a close assault. Now, I did not count in that close assault that squad's panzerfaust gunner. So he's going to try and take a shot, meanwhile, at the nearby American half-track. So there's my observation check, a vehicle that has fired from an obscured position. And now I have to actually hit him, and it's going to be pretty easy because I'm point blank 2+, make it a 3+ because he is obscured, with a point blank panzerfaust shot against an American half-track, a 6. That's an easy hit, and the armor penetration is going to be pretty ridiculous. It is an 8 against the side armor of a half-track, which is only a 2. I have to beat a 6 on 2d6. I roll an 8, and that's the end of that American half-track. And that was the big German comeback that I've been telling you guys about. In the space of really just 5 activations or so, I forced the Americans to draw 6 battle rating counters all at once. 1 for a half-track, 2 for another half-track, 3 for a tank, 4 I occupied the trailhead objective, 5 another half-track, and 6 for the American infantry squad that was there. Now, out of those 6 battle rating counters, of course, one of them had to be a special. Mark drew a breakdown and played it on my Panzer Commander. So now Mark's going to roll a d6 on this breakdown table. He winds up rolling a 5, so that tank is going to be immobilized for the rest of the game. And to wrap up quickly the rest of the German turn, I'm going to move forward with some more grenadiers. They don't really have any targets though. That half-track moved forward, knocked down a few of those American infantry, and pinned down the rest. And I chose not to draw a battle rating counter at the end of the turn and roll to unpin my units, because I only have 1, so I'm going to spare myself the battle rating counter. Alright, now we're into the Americans, and Mark has rolled very badly on his order dice, very badly for his off-board artillery, and very badly for his on-board artillery. So the Germans are catching a break. But then he rolls to bring on his aircraft. He has a forward air controller in his force, so his roll is very, very easy. So now that P-38 is on the table, my anti-aircraft unit is going to go ahead and take his shot. It's always considered area fire. Heavy autocannon 37mm counts as 8 rate of fire. We find 8 rate of fire here on the area effect table, and it's always going to be a 6+. So I have to roll a 6+ with 1 dice. Alright, so I'm trying to, quote, pin down the aircraft, really just chase it away, and if I succeed at that, I then roll another d6, and if I roll a 4+, I actually do a level of damage to it. So first, let's see if I get the pin. Get it in the box, and no, I do not. So that airstrike is cleared to come in hot because my flak unit has failed in its mission. Alright, so that P-38 gets 10 5-inch rockets, and they're a 6+ to hit. So Mark is choosing to come in from that direction so he can score on my rear armor. It only makes sense. And now he's going to roll 10 total dice, and he needs 6 ups to directly hit my armor. So he's going to roll 2 sets of 5, and he winds up scoring 3 total hits on my German tanks. So all 3 hits were registered on my 2nd Panzer IV, so long story short, take your second shot. That Panzer IV is hella smoked. Now that P-38 might come back because he still has a 20mm autocannon. Drawing the required battle rating counter for my destroyed Mark IV, you guessed it, I pull another special counter because this game has been absolutely nuts with the special counters. Now, the Germans don't really have any effective air cover in November 1944, so we house rule it and we read it as a mine strike, just for a little bit of extra historical accuracy. So I select this Sherman here as my victim. I roll the d6 on the mine table. I get a 4, and that's going to read as a penetration value of 5 against the Sherman's rear armor. So the math comes out to where I have to beat a 5 on 2d6. I score a 6, so I barely did beat it, and that will be another smoked Sherman and battle rating counter for the Americans. Now some American infantry has gotten close enough to score 2 bazooka hits on my remaining immobilized Panzer IV, and one of them exactly equaled or tied the armor penetration number. So that equals a pin, and now I have to make another morale check. So I roll a 1, and here's where the rules get a little murky, so let's go through it. Now technically I was pinned because of his tie, and then I had to make a morale check. So technically I was already pinned when I rolled the 1, and because of that little footnote there you see next to the word abandon on the vehicle column, that means that I've now been technically pinned twice. And so now I'm considered abandoned and destroyed. Some people might disagree with that, but even if that wasn't the case, which I'm pretty sure it is, doesn't matter because that tank was also immobilized. So if you read the rule carefully, if it was already pinned or immobilized, another pin means it's gone. So no matter how you cut the rule, that Mark IV is now abandoned and the unit's considered destroyed. Beginning German turn 4, again I roll my 3 dice for a company-sized game. I only add 3 this time, however, because I have lost one of my officers, but I rolled pretty well. I end up with 17 orders. Alright, so I'm going to lead off with my Iron Cross squad here. So they are going to move 5 inches, and that will put them within 5 inches of this half-track for an infantry close assault against an armored vehicle. Now, this is going to be a lot more risky, and the way we resolve it is going to be a little bit different. Alright, so they're within 5 inches, so we then consult this table and roll a simple d6 to see what happens with my close assault. And I roll a 2, so I fail. And I remove 1 infantryman. So that close assault on the half-track has failed, and I'm sure that 50 cal will chew me up next turn. Okay, both sides have now completed their full turn 4. I'll be honest, not a whole heck of a lot happened after that failed close assault. And we're starting to run a little short on time, to be honest. So, long story short, take your third shot. We have decided to call it. And how we're going to do that is reveal our battle rating counters and see who's closest to our breakpoint. So many of these counters were special counters that don't count towards your total. That's why this game lasted so long. Alright, so the Americans have revealed their accumulated points. Looks like they have 29 points assessed against them, and their breakpoint was calculated to be 35. So they are 6 points short of what would have been their breakpoint. Heading over to the Germans, looks like they took 33 points against them, and their breakpoint was calculated to be 38. So they are only 5 points short of their breakpoint. So by virtue of that math, with the Americans being 6 points still away from their breakpoint and the Germans only 5, this is going to come down as a very narrow 1-point American victory. And yeah, it really came down to the wire. It came down that close. And here's something else to show how close this game was. I am really close, you see that half-track there, for taking that second objective point there at the head of the Kall River Bridge. But I didn't quite make it, but that would have been another battle rating counter for the Americans. To be perfectly honest, though, when I came under American air attack that one phase, I should have drawn another battle rating counter just for that. Just for coming under enemy air attack, you're supposed to draw another battle rating counter, and I'll be honest, I forgot to do that. So, with that, in retrospect, that's one of those things that you remember when you're editing the video. Yeah, I definitely lost this game, probably by more than 1 point. But either way, the Americans walk away the winners here in Hürtgen Forest, which is definitely an upset against the historical outcome of these engagements. Here's another quick look at my wrecked 88. Historically, the Americans completely lost this battle. The Germans pushed over the Kall River, they took the bridge, and they pushed all the way toward American positions at Vosenek. And then that sort of doomed the 28th US Infantry to a series of really nasty counterattacks to retake all of this terrain. But here, Mark has held his ground, and he's defended the Kall River Bridge, so in this sort of alternate timeline, who knows, maybe the 28th US Infantry is going to be spared a lot of those absolute meat grinder and frustrating and largely pointless counterattacks that historically took place through the rest of November. So congratulations to Mark on a well-fought victory. I did the best I could with the Germans, but I just couldn't quite get the job done. Meanwhile, we hope that all of you guys have enjoyed our 80th anniversary recreation of the Hürtgen Forest. There you have it, folks. Despite a pretty serious German rally in turns 3 and 4, this game comes down as a 1-point American victory. But I gotta be honest, I did forget to draw the additional required battle rating counters when I came under American air attack, so to be perfectly honest, I should have 2 more battle rating counters in my total as well. At the same time, however, I have taken the Trailhead objective, and I was 1 movement phase away from the Kall River Bridge objective, so that would have been another battle rating counter for the Americans as well. Historically, this German counteroffensive would cross the bridge and push on to threaten American positions clear back at Vosenek. thus prompting the 28th US Infantry Division to begin a long, brutal, bitter, and very bloody series of largely fruitless counterattacks to retake the Kall Bridge, push back through Kommerscheidt, and finally retake the objective town of Schmidt. This would cost the 28th US Infantry and other American divisions dearly. By the end, the Americans would take over 50,000 casualties in the Bloody Hürtgen, with Schmidt not being permanently retaken by the 82nd Airborne Division until February 5th, 1945. Even more tragic, with the onset of the Battle of the Bulge on the 16th of December, the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest is largely forgotten today, something that we're trying to fix in our own very small way here on the Sitrep podcast. And on that cheerful note, that's where we're going to leave it for today, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the Sitrep Podcast Discord. There is an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. But for now, this is Hürtgen Jim with the Sitrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode, and as always, Tango Mike for watching.